So, hi, that's okay. So this workshop is to talk about Social Explorer and GapMinder, which are two online tools. And Social Explorer is one that is available because the library pays for the subscription. So this is a mapping service that you would have to pay for other than being at the University of Redlands. So it's a subscription service, and I'm going to pass these out so if you want to take notes down, that's fine. And you get to Social Explorer by going to socialexplorer.com, and I'm up there right now. And one thing you'll notice, and I have to check this out, I didn't try this from home. I don't know if you're licensed if you're off campus. So you may have to be using the campus network for the license to work. Or if that doesn't work, then try logging into My Redlands if you're not on campus. But the way you can tell that it's licensed and you've got the full version is that you'll see this thing up here. It says professional license provided by University of Redlands. So that indicates that you're into the full version. So the way it works is that you log in, and if you have never logged in before, you need to create a private account, and this is different from your university account, so you don't use the same credentials. So you don't use your email address and university password. You can use your university email address and a different password. But you have to create an account for yourself, and I have some notes on that. It's a fairly basic account creation thing where you have to create the account, and then it'll send you an email asking you to verify it. I believe it did that, and then you go into the mapping system. All right, so you'll see a screen that looks like this. And you'll just click on Start Now. And if it's the first time that you've logged in, you will see a screen that gives a tour like this. And you can just click through the tour, and it just goes through some of the basic things about where you find data, how you use the legend in the mapping system. How you change the type of visualization that's shown on screen, and is that the geographic detail? So that would be called the granularity of the data that you are working with. Okay, how specific it is geographically. I'll show how to do a multi-map display, and then you can change your map title. There's an options menu over here, which I'm just going to talk about really briefly. And then the search bar that we'll start out with. Okay, and then this little thing over here that we'll see in the map is where the metadata is housed. So if you're using some data and you click on that little eye tool, it'll link you to a page where you can get all the data about the map data. Okay. It's actually a very nicely set up system. I haven't used Social Explorer a lot, but I played around with it today to prepare for the workshop, and it's a neat system for doing some basic mapping. Okay, so to start out with, I'm going to just search on an address, and this is an address of the house that I grew up in Illinois. I lived there from 1956 through 1980, something like that. Okay, so just like if you've worked with ArcGIS Online, it's the same type of geocoding system. You put in an address and it'll start popping up all these other matching addresses that fit. In fact, I had no idea that there were so many Finley roads in the United States till I did this. So this is the place where I grew up. And You can see here that it's displaying population density per square mile right now. And because it's zoomed in, the map is very uniform, but if we start zooming out, you can see that it breaks down the display. And it's showing the data by census tract, US Census Tract, which is one of the categories that the census data is organized by. And you can tell this by looking at this little feature up here, which gives you the granularity of the data. So it says show data by tract. And right now, this is set to display the data automatically. So if I click on that little drop-down menu thing, I can change how it displays the data by turning off automatic. Okay, and then I can change change it to census block group to get a little more granularity of the data. And when I zoom in, I can see a little bit more detail. Okay, you guys have used ArcGIS Online, or it's pretty similar, or actually it's more similar to like Community Analyst. Have you guys used Community Analyst or Business Analyst Online? Okay, this is very similar to that. And I'll try to point out, well, I will point out a few differences that make this an interesting tool in comparison to ArcGIS Online. Okay, so that's how you can change, basically the way you work with the map. You can pan just by clicking and dragging on the map. You can zoom either with the plus or minus icons, or you can use your scroll wheel on the mouse to move around. And when you click on any of the, right now it's block groups, it will give you the data for that block group. So this is the block group that I grew up in, now has a population density of 4,252.8 people per square mile. All right. So that's how to get into the mapping system and play around with it. Changing the granularity of the data. I'm going to go back to putting the granularity setting back to automatic. Okay, so we work with the data a little bit more. And the way you change the data that's displayed is you click on the change data button, and you can choose from a number of variables that are available. And this is very similar to Community Analyst also. You'll notice that certain categories are grayed out, and they're grayed out because either the data isn't available for the time period that's displayed. So you have a time bar up here where you can go search for data that's relevant to different decades. Okay, and certain data that's displayed down here aren't available for a particular time period, so it won't show up. Or they may not be available for the geographic area that you're in, so they'll be grayed out also. They just won't display. Okay, so what do I want to show here? Okay, so you can browse. You can also browse data by survey. So this is the categories that you can display. You can also go in and browse by survey. There's a lot of data is from the American Community Survey, which is by the Census Bureau, and this is a survey that a lot of social scientists, political scientists, and sociologists depend on. That the U.S. Survey Census Bureau publishes. So you have ACS data going back, was it probably to 2009, and then you have census data. And the census data is kind of interesting because it goes back to 1790. So you can go back and map data from those time periods. And then also, excuse me, one thing that this data set has that Esri ArcGIS Online does not have any of is religion data. Okay, the US Census does not collect data by law. They cannot, since about the 30s, they have not, it's been illegal for the US Census to gather, excuse me, I'm getting, gather data on religion. So this data is provided in the Social Explorer, and it's, I forget what RCMS stands for, but it's a group that does a periodic, I think it's a decadal survey of religious participation in the United States. And then you have some other thing, health data and stuff like that, crime data, FBI crime data. I'm going to get some old census data in here. Census 1790. Going to look at population density. And I'll just say population density per square mile and add that in. And you'll notice that the area that we're working in here is gray. And if I back out of here, you can see that the map has adjusted because the map extent ends at the Mississippi River, because that was the size of the United States. In fact, the area that I grew up in 1790 was called the Northwest Territory. And the Southwest Territory is essentially Virginia down here. Then you have the 13 original colonies. Excuse me. One thing that's kind of cool about the legend is that as you move along, move your cursor across the legend, it changes the display on the map. And then also you can go in and you can change which colors are displayed in the legend. You can flip the colors and you can adjust the cut points, like the number of categories that are displayed, and move the cut point down. I'm probably not going to display anything by doing that. Yeah, it didn't work. Oh, yeah, it didn't work. Anyway, so you can play around with the legend by doing that. Okay, so I'm just going to move to a little bit different type of map, a bubble map, which I'm going to change the data over here to the ACS 2016. Is that what it was? 2006 year, 5-year estimates. Okay, and then I'm going to, instead of doing density or normalized data, which is what I've been showing so far, normalized data is a density, like population per square mile. I'm going to just go to a pure population total per geographic area and visualize that on the map. Okay, and you'll notice that you get this really weird looking map with all these bubbles on it. And so this is a bubble map, which is built as one of the features, the display features that's built into Social Explorer. And if you move around the map onto all the bubbles, you can basically see that they represent the states that they're originating from. And so each bubble represents the size of the population in those states. The size of the bubble, bigger the bubble, the bigger the population. Okay, and then if I start zooming in, okay, it breaks down into county level data, which you can see here by the granularity tab. And then if I keep moving into like where I was, where I grew up. Hey, how you doing? Have you used Social Explorer much?
Not for a while.
It's a fun little system. Yeah. So if I move in, so this got this bubble map, which is displaying, basically for each geographic region, the size of the population there. If I keep zooming in, it's gonna get more granular, and then it'll have dots for the, it's gone to the census tracts now. So if you look at all the little census tracts in the Chicago area, you can get an idea of the size of the population in those little regions. Okay, so that has bubble mapping capabilities. And then You can go to a different type of map, which is a dot density map. Have you guys done dot density maps? Okay. So basically, you can just display this data as a dot density map, which puts a dot. Right now, it's doing a dot for every 1,000 people in each geographic area. The dots don't represent exactly where people live. They're just randomly scattered in each of the little regions. Okay. So it has those types of capabilities. So it can display choropath maps, it can do bubble maps, it can do dot density maps. And then it can do comparative maps, so you can compare maps. So we can do a side-by-side map. So you can compare differences in the regions over time periods, for example. By default, the two maps are not linked together, so you can link them by clicking the link button up there. Okay, and then I'm going to go in and change the population data on the right side back to about 1960 was when I came into the world in 1956, about 1960s, where I can remember back to growing up in Lombard, Illinois. And I'll just go to total population. And if we take these two maps, you can see that the dot density map here is that in 1960, there's just a lot fewer people in the Chicago region. And then also, if we look at 2016, you can see how much the suburbanization has happened in the region. The area I grew up in, right here in Lombard, was on they used to call it the boondocks. So we were on the edge of the city in 1960, and now it's really just down, it's right in the urban area now. We can also display this as a swipe map in Social Explorer. Okay, so I can swipe, bring 2016 in, and then bring it back to 1960. Okay. A few other things on your sheet there is that if you want to create a map and you want to share it somehow, if you want to put it into a report or a paper or something like that, you can export it as an image. I found this the selected area tool to be kind of weird to work with. Let's see if it works better right now. Yeah, it keeps doing this where it'll say the selected area is too small. And if you up the resolution that you're going for, it gets better, but you have to basically play around with zooming back and forth till the system is happy. I'm not sure why it's doing that. So once you get it, it turns white. I'm not sure it's actually constraining itself to, I didn't have this problem this morning. It showed up when I was playing with it a little while ago. There. So I'm not sure why it finds this to be the acceptable resolution. I'd have to play around with it some more. Just the messages that I'm playing around with. I don't know what the target zoom level is going for. You think that might be influencing?
That might be
Now it's,
zoom in.
what's that?
Zoom in.
Okay, so if I zoom, there you go. Okay. So you basically have to play with those factors and get used to how they work. And then once you get your area defined where you want it to be, you can just click export, and it sends it out as a JPEG. Actually, 3 different files. It'll give you your map. It gives you your legend, and I forget what else. I can go look at the old one I did. Let's see. So your map, legend, and scale bar come as 3 different files. Yeah, I guess so you can put them separately in your. Okay. So far, I haven't found any way to share the map as like a map service or something like that. It doesn't seem to have that capability. You can go and share this by to social media or by email, or there's a link that you can copy, so you could embed this into another map, possibly a story map, I guess. You could probably embed this as a web page in a story map. Okay. And other than that, you can check out the options. I have not done the report function. You can mask some types of map data. You can bring in your own data, upload your own map data, which I assume would be shape files and possibly CSV files. You can do annotations on your map. It says you can upload data and geocode it, so I have not done that. So apparently you could probably bring in a spreadsheet or a CSV file of points by addresses or lat longs probably, and bring them into your map. And then you can switch to satellite view and see the region and all of its green glory. Okay, so that's Social Explorer. And are there any questions about that? As I said before, I think the main benefits of Social Explorer, from what I can see, looking at the data that's available in comparison to Community Atlas, is the religious data and the census data going back to 1790. Okay, that you won't find in Community Atlas or ArcGIS Online at all. Other than that, I think you would probably find most of this other data. I don't know, I'd have to look into it in more detail to see. But it's a fairly simple mapping system to get into if you're going to try to do something quickly. And as you of our students, you have access to this. I think I was trying to figure out if you need to be on campus to be able to use this, the full version. It licenses itself. Doesn't. I'm not sure if you have to just log into My Redlands and that does something, or it doesn't take any university credentials when you go to log in. So, yeah, that has, it denotes up here that somewhere that it's your license. You have a full license. I'll check it out at home when I get home tonight and see if I can log into it somehow. All right, so that's Social Explorer. And now I'm going to switch over to GapMinder, which is not a mapping system, but a visualization system that has geographic components. And like Social Explorer, I have not used GapMinder very much. I played around with it and said, wow, this looks really cool. And that's about as far as I've gone with it. I can give you my Social Explorer. The School of Business uses this in their classes. It's kind of an interesting site. I took the GapMinder test and got a 23% on it. So you might want to see if you can beat me, which shouldn't be very hard. In fact, I couldn't even tell the question that I got right on the quiz. So I'm not sure where they got the 23% in. But essentially, GapMinder, there isn't any login. You just go in and use it. And it's a visualization tool. I'm not sure if you can save your visualizations that you create in here. That I need to explore with it explore it some more. But I would recommend just going in and you go to the site, which is gapminder.org, and you click. They have some examples down near the bottom of the page. And this is the essential structure of the visualization tool. It has various ways of doing charting and comparing two or more variables on a surface. For example, this is a chart of life expectancy versus income, colored by the world regions. up here. And you can go in and you can choose countries that you wish to highlight in this visualization, or change a lot of the capabilities. One thing cool that it has this animation service where it will go back to I think the 19th century and animate the graph. So this is that relationship animated starting in 1800. And then you can look at change over time. So it has basically the geographic relationships are being shown on a standard graph, point graph here. Okay.
Everyone died because of the Spanish influenza.
Yeah, you see dips like that, and so then on the site you can go in. There's another part of the site where you can. It says try our tools, and that's where, or try our new tools, where you can go in and create visualizations by yourself. But basically, you can just go in and modify the examples they've given you. For example, I went in, the example on your sheet is that I went in and did CO2 emissions by income. Okay, and you can get this nice chart where it looks like Africa winds up down on they're emitting less CO2 because they have less income. But also I did this kind of interesting one. I just did for the heck of it. And I did main religion in 2008. And then I animated that over time. And you can kind of see the Industrial Revolution as a reflection of Christianity, with these Christian countries coming online using lots of coal and stuff. And then the Eastern countries, Eastern religions getting into it, and then later on the Muslim nations starting to produce more and more CO2. What this chart means, I don't know, but it's kind of an interesting graphic. So all I'm going to do with respect to the workshop is invite you to go in and play around with GapMinder if you want to stay, and play around with some of the tools in it. I've given you on the GapMinder handout, the last page is a PDF printed out of all the tools that are available in GapMinder and how you can adjust your visualizations. Let's see. And one thing I would need to do to play around with this to see if there are any sharing or ways that you can capture visualizations you make. So if anyone plays around with that, well, you can share them on social media and you can email them. However, I don't know how you maintain a catalog of things that you create here. Okay, any questions on GapMinder?
Where do they get their data from?
I'd have to go find out. It's weird. It's interesting when you're doing certain types of visualization, it'll have a warning pop up here about the quality of the data. So the whole site is dedicated to data quality and using factual data. So yeah, I'm not familiar with, the .org indicates that they are a nonprofit. So they seem to have a target a mission of trying to fight against ignorance. In fact, they have a tab called ignorance here. I would assume that they're very open about the sources of data, but I'd have to poke around to see, where they're getting their data from. I know the School of Business uses this because it has a lot of international data that can be visualized fairly easily. All right. So if you want to hang out, if you want to try to get into Social Explorer, get yourself set up on that. Yeah, you're welcome to do that, or use GapMinder. I'll hang out as long as you guys are here. If you need to go, that's fine too. Okay, well, thanks for coming out.